Dr. Scott Stripling has made this kind of discovery before. Back in 2018, he made headlines when he discovered a ceramic pomegranate, which pointed to the existence of the Ark of the Covenant tabernacle. At that moment, the Bible scholar may have outdone himself. During a dig in Israel, Stripling and his team unearthed 3 relics that he believes provide beyond doubt the historical accuracy of the Bible. Archaeologists unearth lost city in Israel and discover a biblical secret in its depths. This is no coincidence, because Stripling and his team had been excavating at the ancient site of Shiloh for many years. Because there? Well, the location is marked in the Hebrew Bible. Shiloh appears in the book of Joshua and existed throughout the time of the Judges. It was supposed to be about 11 centuries BC. And what Stripling unearthed could well prove some of the events in those books. Stripling has no doubt about the importance of his latest discovery. The Bible and other ancient religious texts are what attracted archaeology to this region, the scholar told the Jerusalem Post in 2019. We have to recognize the validity of the Bible. I am comfortable with the biblical story, and now we have proof of this story. You wouldn't blame Stripling for being excited. This kind of discovery can make a career. The so-called biblical archaeologist is dean and professor of archaeology and church history at the Bible Seminary in Katy, Texas. But it is his position in the Near East Archaeological Society that justifies his excavation work in search of ancient artifacts around the world. Shiloh is also not the first archaeological site Stripling has searched. In 2005, the professor inspected the Tal El Hammam excavation project. It is an area of the Jordan that biblical experts believe to have been Sodom. After working at that excavation for 5 years, Stripling transferred to Khirbet El Makadar. And in that location, he would have made a new biblical revelation. Stripling served as director on the Khirbet El Makadar excavation from 2010 to 2017. And his team certainly had their hands full. Better yet, excavations at this site would have revealed the ancient city of Ai, as described in the book of Joshua. But the teacher wasn't finished yet. He went to Shiloh and to a remarkable new discovery. Stripling began focusing attention on Shiloh in 2017. This made sense, as Shiloh had long been an area of archaeological interest, especially for biblical scholars. In fact, the first excavations took place at Shiloh a century ago, in 1922. That initial excavation was the work of a team from Denmark. The same expedition also visited Shiloh twice in 1926 and 1932. But perhaps they needed more modern equipment to find something. In 1981, as it turns out, a Tel Aviv University professor named Israel Finkelstein directed a 3-year excavation in the area. And Finkelstein and his team have unearthed some intriguing artifacts. Archaeologists discovered a cache of bones believed to be from the Bronze Age. And although the group apparently didn't read much more about the discovery, at the time, Stripling thought it might have greater significance. The Tel Aviv team saw the bones only as a suggestion that the Canaanite people performed animal sacrifices at Shiloh. But for Stripling, there was also a biblical connection. It was in Leviticus chapter 7. Stripling told the Jerusalem Post. The right side of the animal was the priest's part, which would be consumed in Shiloh. This provided Stripling with further evidence for his belief that Shiloh was indeed an area of biblical significance. He told the newspaper that the dates confirmed the connection between the bones and the events reported in the Bible. In his opinion, this showed verisimilitude. This shows consistency between what we read in the text and what we find in the ground, he said. But what makes Shiloh such fertile ground for archaeological discoveries? Well, as we mentioned previously, this city is considered the main refuge for the Israelites between the 12th and 11th centuries BC. And the Ark of the Covenant and the tabernacle would have found a home in the ancient site. For those who don't know, the tabernacle is an essential part of the history of Judaism. It is believed that this mobile shelter was created by Moses for the Hebrew people, taking them to the Promised Land. The tabernacle allowed wanderers to access the place of worship while traveling. And if you've never seen the Indiana Jones film Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Ark of the Covenant is another significant part of the Jewish religion. It is said that God presented Moses with a pair of tablets inscribed with the 10 Commandments. These stones were then placed inside the ark for safekeeping. Therefore, The tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant, as far as we know, lived in Shiloh during the 11th century BC. Then the Philistines conquered the Israelites and came to control these precious artifacts. Shiloh itself was razed soon after and remained that way for hundreds of years. With such fertile historical and religious accounts to work with, then, it is no surprise that archaeologists have returned to the site again and again. As Stripling told CBN News in 2019, this is the first capital of ancient Israel, and it is a sacred place because the tabernacle was there where the people connected with God. The archaeologist certainly seemed enthusiastic about his work. "We're dealing with real people, real places, real events," Stripling told CBN. And to illustrate this point, he previously spoke of coins that were unearthed. "We are talking about coins of Herod the Great, Pontius Pilate, Testos, Felix, Agrippa I, Agrippa II. The Bible talks about these people," he said. Stripling continued, "You can read the Bible, you can walk through the Bible, but the ultimate is you can dig the Bible." And as he spoke, his passion became clearer. "It's as if we came out of the ground. And as we dig into the ground, we connect with God and with each other, I think, in a very important way," he said enthusiastically. Archaeologists have every right to be emotional. After all, Stripling and his team of experts and volunteers have unearthed an abundance of relics. The ceramic pomegranate mentioned earlier, found in the summer of 2018, was just the first reason to marvel. But why was the discovery so significant? The pomegranate is a sacred motif, Stripling told the Jerusalem Post in 2019. "The only places in Israel where we find pomegranates like these are the Levitical sites." The archaeologist explains that he references the pomegranate in Exodus 23:23 as part of the high priest's robe. Specifically speaking, the fruit is said to be on the lower edge of the high priest's clothing. This is important because, as Stripling told the Jerusalem Post, it means that the pomegranate is the only sacred food to be placed in the presence of God. So, Stripling reasoned, food was a chief motif in the tabernacle and temples. Archaeologists also discovered a variety of large petos over the 3 years of excavation. These large jars were discovered in areas that were once used for storage while ancient Shiloh existed. Stripling believed that the vessels had probably stored food that the Israelites had brought to the tabernacle. And it's not just that either. The group of scholars also discovered a large cache of coins and pottery. In fact, CBN News reported that Stripling and his team excavated up to 2,000 pottery shards every single day. And as experts learned more about these relics, the clay pieces became key sources for dating their other discoveries. But the most important discovery for Stripling came in the summer of 2019. Biblical archaeologists believe that this particular discovery directly related to 1 Kings 2:28. And if you know the Bible, you may remember that it says, when the news reached Job, that he had conspired with Adonijah, though not with Absalom, he fled to the tent of the Lord and clung to the horns on the horns of the altar. Surprisingly, Stripling claimed that his team had found something mentioned in this passage. In August 2019, a press release about the discovery explained that 3 altar horns had been brought to light by excavation. 2 of them were almost 38 centimeters long, while the other was 17 centimeters long. According to Stripling, there will probably be a 4th horn, too, and he hoped his team would find it soon. The press release added, the altar fragments may have been part of early Israelite cult systems that operated in Shiloh. And for Stripling, the relics could mean something more, too. I mean, we never expected to discover the tabernacle. It was made from animal skins, it would have decomposed, Stripling told the Times of Israel. But the supporting material culture I believe I'm seeing in the excavations. The archaeologist thought he was on the right track to finally discover the platform. Regardless of what the future holds, however, the discovery of the antlers is certainly special. After all, excavations in Israel have so far only managed to unearth 7 similar altars. And although there are no signs of the altar block itself, so far, the horns are very similar to those discovered at Beersheba. So the horns certainly seem to indicate cult practices at Shiloh. But was there a permanent structure in place? Stripling seemed to think so and was determined to look for a platform in the dig. We even hope it will be similar to biblical dimensions, he told the Times of Israel. However, not everyone sees biblical connotations so easily. Atlanta scholar Jacob L. Wright is an associate professor at Emory's Candler School of Theology. He told the Jerusalem Post, "Let's assume that we have discovered many things related to the cult sanctuary at Shiloh, and that the Bible describes it in the same way. Does this prove that the biblical narrative is true? No." Wright also said, "Archaeology has one story to tell, and the biblical narrative has another." But he also said, "Who knows? We don't want to jump to hasty conclusions." And Stripling has not been discouraged by skeptics. In fact, he argued that he let science, not the Bible, guide his excavations. The archaeologist told the Times of Israel, "Science is what it is. I'm quite capable of bifurcating my beliefs based on what we're discovering. We're not trying to read something into the evidence that isn't there. But it is also fair to say that the religious text retains a particular meaning for Stripling." Stripling confirmed to the Times of Israel that he reads the Bible as a serious historical text and that the book illuminates the work he is doing. "It's quite significant, and sometimes I have to stop and remember where I am," said the academic. So what lies ahead in your search for the tabernacle? Well, Stripling is determined to keep digging to find the platform and publish his findings. And, of course, he will use the Bible to guide his alternatives. For example, the archaeologist is said to be curious about a structure the team found that dates back to the Iron Age. This structure would coincide with a construction mentioned in the Bible, as it extends from east to west. Stripling also recalls that its position atop a hill to the north is significant, as it is exactly where he would expect to find a fixed tabernacle. "That made me, let's say, very curious," confirmed the archaeologist. Stripling even hopes to find a platform that is comparable to the Bible's description of a tabernacle with an inner and outer court. In the meantime, however, he updated followers on discoveries at the ancient site. In a January 2020 blog called Winter Finds at Shiloh, Stripling described what his team had been investigating. "And by all accounts, they have been very busy. We just finished our winter screening project," Stripling wrote. "The findings are fascinating." Then, while teasing that parts of the discoveries remain top secret, he explained why he was so excited about them. Initially, it was because Stripling's team had used a new technique called wet sieving to significantly expand findings from major excavations. "I estimate that previous excavations missed 50 to 70% of small discoveries, such as scarabs, bullas, a small case with an amulet worn around the neck by the Romans, beads, coins, etc.," said the archaeologist excitedly. And it seemed like his working method was reaching other teams. Stripling boasted that the team had already built a mobile wet sieving station for a group of archaeologists working out of the University of Haifa in Israel. And there's more. Another group would be interested in adopting the technique. So who knows? Stripling's innovative methods may soon be popularized in excavation circles. At this time, the work continues. But it looks like Stripling couldn't be happier with this situation. After all, as he told the Times of Israel, one of his favorite passages in the Hebrew Bible comes from Psalm 102:14. "For its stones are loved by your servants, its ruins fill them with compassion." Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.